This is the RN-50 from Serbu Firearms. If you didn't know about this gun a week ago, there's a good chance that you do now, as this is the gun that blew up and almost killed Scott from Kentucky Ballistics. Hey everybody, I'm Carolina Gun Guy, and if you're like me, you've probably watched a dozen or more videos in the last week analyzing the Kentucky Ballistics incident and discussing whether or not the RN-50 is a safe gun to shoot. I'm going to add my video to the growing list of discussion, but with a small twist. Other than the videos from Kentucky Ballistics and the initial response video from Mark Serbu, I haven't seen anyone who actually owns this gun talk about the incident. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the RN-50, how it functions, how it failed, and I'll fire a couple rounds through it to let you see it up close in action. Like everyone else after watching Scott's video, I had a few questions about the design tolerances of the gun. So I asked Mark Serbu and he did give me a response, and we'll go over that a little bit later in the video. There are about 1,400 of these guns out there, and I have number 1,214. As an owner of the RN-50, I'm thankful for two things. The first is that Scott didn't suffer more damage than he did, and that he's well on his way to recovery. Scott credited his survival to his left thumb and to God, and I absolutely agree with him. Scott, if you happen to be watching this, I'm praying for a speedy recovery. The second thing that I'm thankful for is that the failure was not the gun's fault. Everything that I've seen so far seems to indicate that there was an issue with the round itself, whether it was overpressured, or there was a barrel obstruction that caused it to malfunction, or there was some other issue we don't know right now. I believe that Mark Serbu was either trying to get or is in the process of getting the gun, ammo, and spent cartridge from Scott to analyze it. Whether Mark gets it or whether someone else does an analysis on the gun, we won't know more information until there has been a deep dive into the actual hardware and ammo involved. At some point, a good explanation video will come out from someone, and that will answer a bunch of questions that we all have. But to understand why Scott sustained the injuries that he did, you have to take a closer look at the RN-50. That might be a little too close. There we go. This gun is identical to the one that Scott was using, except that this has the standard barrel, which is 29.5 inches long, as opposed to the heavy barrel on Scott's gun, which is 36 inches long and weighs almost 8 pounds more than this one. This gun, as configured here, but without the weight of the stock, weighs 15 pounds. The one that Scott has weighs 23 pounds, plus a couple more pounds for the stock. This is a modified break action, and to load a round, you depress this lever here, and you lift up on the barrel. Once you've done that, the breech cap is exposed. The breech cap weighs a little over 8 ounces, so a little over half a pound. It takes 4 full turns to get the breech cap off, and I mention this because Backyard Ballistics did a couple videos on this incident, and he discussed the number of engaged threads, pointing out that the first 4 engaged threads would carry 82% of the force load, and there was a question as to whether or not there were 3 or 4 engaged threads on the cap, so it does appear that there are 4 engaged threads. Right behind the breech cap are these 2 ears that stick up. These ears act as a secondary safety in 2 different ways. First of all, if the breech cap is not completely tightened, the ears will prevent the RN-50 from locking back into place, giving you a clear indicator that something is not right. Secondly, they act as a sort of backup to hold the breech cap in just in case of failure. Yes, I get it. We all know that the secondary safety was ineffective in the case of Scott's gun, as the ears sheared right off and one of them went inside of him. But I've seen claims in several videos alleging that there is no secondary safety feature, and that's simply not true. As I mentioned earlier, I emailed Mark Serbu a bunch of questions specific to Scott's incident. Then I thought about it, emailed him back, and said, don't answer those questions. I don't need to know, and the answers will come out eventually. But I did want to know general specifications of the gun, and Mark gave me answers to the questions on that. Per Mark, under normal circumstances, with a 55,000 psi round, there's a force of around 20,000 pounds being exerted on the breech cap here. This can go to a little over 25,000 pounds if there's a case head separation. This gun was designed to withstand in excess of 75,000 pounds of force on the breech cap. As for those 2 little ears, the secondary safety, it takes about 15,000 pounds of force to shear them both off in the manner that happened with Scott's gun. Let me go ahead and put a couple rounds through it and show you how this thing works. I don't have a fancy slow-mo camera, but I can shoot in 960 frames per second, so you can get a good idea of how this gun works under normal conditions. I have a secondary camera, but I didn't hit record, so the only angle I have is this close-up shot that you have right here. So to answer the question in the title of this video, is the RN-50 safe? As someone who owns the gun and has shot it, I believe that yes, it is safe to shoot, with caveats. The main one being that all guns can fail, but it's how they fail that determines what sort of injury you might get. Obviously, Scott's RN-50 failed, and it failed spectacularly, and I don't mean that in a good way. I did an initial video on this gun, and I talked about the possibility of the breech cap failing, and I said this. You'll notice that the cap fits snugly right into the frame, so even if for some reason the breech cap threads failed, you still have support from the frame to prevent anything from happening. So you would have to have failures at multiple points simultaneously for anything to go wrong. Oh man, it hurts me just to watch that now. I was pretty confident that failure was a very, very small possibility, and mathematically it is. And in the case of Kentucky Ballistics, the failure does not appear to be the gun's fault. It was very likely the ammo being used. Whenever you learn about gun safety, you learn the truth that you are responsible for every round that comes out of your gun. Well, the inverse is true also. You're responsible for every round that goes into your gun. And by saying that, I'm not trying to place any blame or fault on Scott for what happened to him, but I'm just stating a fact. Guns are first and foremost a tool, and proper inspection, maintenance, and cleaning of your tools and accessories is necessary to ensure smooth function. And if you feed garbage into your tool, you'll get garbage in return. But whether Scott had a single bad round or one or more of the slap rounds that he was shooting earlier caused some kind of unseen barrel obstruction, we don't know yet. I'm not going to get into the whole, Scott shouldn't have been shooting a slap round through a gun with a muzzle brake. Yes, I've heard that you shouldn't do it, but I don't know what the ramifications are or whether that particular action had any part in the causation of Scott's failure. I'm sure we'll see more about this in the coming weeks once the gun is examined thoroughly. I think the takeaway from this whole incident is that you need to know your gun and know your ammo. If you don't feel comfortable or safe shooting a particular gun or type of ammo, then don't. No one is forcing you to do it. In my opinion, under normal circumstances, the RN-50 is 100% safe as designed, but if it fails, your odds of injury are higher than with a bolt action or a mag-fed design. The final question that I asked Mark Serbu was whether or not he foresees any design changes or possibly retiring the RN-50 line altogether. He gave a long answer which I'm not going to share word for word, but in summary, he doesn't know. And to me, that's a great answer. We live in a society that wants instant justice without all the facts being available, and by leaping to a conclusion as soon as possible, you're going to overlook something. I fully expect that Mark will not only go over Scott's gun in depth if he gets his hands on it, but that he'll sacrifice a few of his RN-50s to try to duplicate the failure here. I know that Mark is going to do another video on this issue when he gets more info, and I'll be anxiously waiting for it. So go ahead and start typing furiously in the comments section if you haven't already. I actually anticipate that the RN-50 is safe position will get a lot of comments about how I must have a death wish or something, so go ahead and type away. I'll just assume that most of you are jealous that you don't have one yourself. Take care. God bless.